I know you're here somewhere.
What's your proposition? How would you blokes like to make some real money? I'm collecting stupid little boys. Stupid little boys. You know, the disobedient ones what play hooky from school.
Lollipops and all free today.
And I takes them to Pleasure Island. Pleasure Island. They never come back. As boys.
Hello, Kitty Winky.
Come on! But Jeremy, Trudy said we mustn't be disturbed at Trudy's son as well. Come on!
Come along, my little dears, my little mice. Come to me. Come on, my little dears. Inside for the Children, Your Highness.
Unique specimens.
Just you wait till our daddy hears about this. I'll be back in the morning.
Be back in the morning con la fottuta roba. There! This will be your home, where I can find you always.
No!
Angelo amigo, you will make lots of money. And when you are growing too old, you will make good firewood.
During one of these sessions, I heard my father talking to the Grand Master, who is one of the highest up in the Freemasons, and asking him, saying to him, "Oh look, I'll sacrifice her if you're needing a child of that age." But I was getting a wee bit older, so I wasn't quite as appealing anymore. And I don't know, luckily for me, the Grand Master chose not to have me sacrificed.
You fucked with us, Charlie.
I did not, sir. He said that there's this place down south where all these rich men go to devil worship. He said they sacrifice kids and whatnot. Women and children all got murdered there. And he said there's all these like old stones out in the woods. People go to like worship. He said there's just so much good killing down there. Reggie got this brand on his back, like in a spiral. He says that's their sign.
And I think you just might have the wrong idea about one or two things. Listen, Bill, I don't think you realize what kind of trouble you were in last night. Who do you think those people were? Those were not just ordinary people there. If I told you their names, I'm not going to tell you their names, but if I did, I don't think you'd sleep so well.
For 6 years, the parents of the murdered girls have grappled with the inexplicable. Why were their daughters left to die? Why has Dutroux never come to trial? And why has every lead that might have revealed a network behind Dutroux been blocked or ignored? But Belgium's lost interest in their struggle. Today, anyone who talks of a network, even the parents, is dismissed as deranged. Since Marc Dutroux's arrest, anyone who's questioned the official line has been attacked. Every lead that might have widened the net has hit the buffers. Dutroux, meanwhile, has sat in jail, but outside, in the shadowy circles in which he moved, potential witnesses in the Dutroux affair have died in strange ways.
I want to make a deal.
A deal about what?
I know things.
Oh, what you know now, all of a sudden?
I know about that woman y'all found out in the woods way back.
Antlers?
I don't mean shit. That was a newspaper. What you know? You don't know shit, do you?
Y'all never caught the man that did that. He's been out there. Killing.
You're talking out your ass, boy. You don't know a fucking thing. He's trying to buy some time, ain't you?
I met him once. There's big people who know about him. Big people.
A police informer with links to the Charleroi underworld, José Steppe, told a journalist he had explosive information on Dutroux. 2 days before they were due to meet, he died. His family believes he was poisoned. Jean-Paul Tamineau was up to his neck in the Charleroi underworld of stolen cars and prostitution. He was summoned to see the Charleroi police and disappeared. The day of Dutroux's arrest, his foot was fished out of the canal.
It's quite a coincidence that they died just before they want to testify.
Social worker Gina Pardons worked with abused children. She'd identified the paedophile members of a pornography ring who'd threatened her. When she reported the threats to the police, she was killed in an unexplained car crash. Francois Raiskens told a friend he'd seen one of the missing girls, Melissa, alive in Holland. Before he could tell the police, his body was found crushed on the railway line. Some 20 people, all potential witnesses in the Dutroux affair, have died in mysterious circumstances. An uneasy peace has returned to Belgium. The streets are calm. The danger of insurrection has passed. The paedophile networks persist. Sometimes there are even arrests. Earlier this year, 19 men from one village were charged with child rape. But the Dutroux affair has paralysed Belgium's judiciary. After 6 years in jail, there is still no date for his trial. When it comes, it'll satisfy no one.
The trial of Dutroux, it will be theater, circus. And I don't want to be part of a circus. The truth is that there is a network, and that they have to search for that network.
Children continue to go missing in Belgium. Dutroux's arrest has made no difference. Last year it was more than 2,000. 52 of those cases remain unsolved.
Reverend, thanks for taking the time to see me on such short notice.
Of course, Detective, please.
It's a very interesting building.
This was the first. Built it in 1980. The rest of the campus grew around it. Now, I remembered you, of course. People of this state owe you a great deal.
Not as much as they owe you. Charitable organizations, education initiatives.
Thank you. We're very proud of our ministries. I don't do as much preaching as I used to. But the legacy program is more my focus now. Things like the state policeman's charity. But what did you want to talk about, son?
The Wellspring program. Mid-'80s through the early 90s. You remember that?
Well, of course I remember. Oh.
I'm trying to locate old personnel, faculty, but I'm having a little bit of trouble acquiring names.
Well, the program was shut down officially, maybe 10 years ago. I never had much ground contact with it, but it involved a number of private schools, enterprises, you understand, that would adopt our standard of curriculum and, in return, receive tuition reimbursement for underprivileged students.
You got any files? Any list of faculty?
Well, that's what I'm getting at, is that these were private institutions, so you'd have to track down their administrators, I believe.
That's the thing. See, all the schools dissolved with the program. And I'm trying to find some tax info, but there were religious exemptions.
Well, there's our archives, of course. We did lose a lot of files. We had some flooding of subfloors. But, I think I should put you together with one of our clerical workers and see if they can't help you find something.
Thank you. Listen, before you do that,
former deacon of yours, Austin Farrar.
That was very, very unfortunate.
Yet he was dismissed.
Evidence had accrued. It became apparent that Austin had implemented certain funds. Well, embezzling is the word. We elected to handle it internally rather than pursuing formal charges.
And then he had his accident.
I'd heard he had taken it hard, drinking. I've seen more souls lost down a bottle than any pit. At the same time, it's hard to trust a man who can't trust himself with a beer, don't you think? But what's this all about now? Wellspring program, Austin Farrar.
Dead women and children.
Terrible. That's terrible. How's that? What you're working on?
Oh, I can't say anything about it at this point, Reverend.
I'd like to set you up with a clerk. You can look at whatever information we still have from Wellspring.
Why'd the Wellspring program shut down, Reverend?
It couldn't sustain its costs. The whole idea was to provide an alternative to the kind of secular, globalized education that our public schools were promoting. When we get the school voucher program instituted, we'll reintroduce the idea. People should have a choice in education like anything else. Steve, would you show the detective to our old archives for outside ministries?
Yes, sir.
I'll call ahead.
I'm gonna come back for that. Reverend, thank you for your time today.
Godspeed, detective. You'll be in my thoughts.
All right, now remember, this is about the finders. This entire fucking document, all of this shit is about the finders. Then we talk about some crime statistics from U.S. Customs. And then, in the middle of this, on page 48, there's a map. Well, what is this map of? Why do I see a map of, this obviously looks like something. I can make out the word tunnel here. This entire building, it looks like it's been mapped out. There's a tunnel? What would this be about? The tunnels found at McMartin Preschool. A preliminary report. A formal report will be released when forensic tests are concluded. A 45-foot tunnel, 9-foot wide, subterranean entrance found under the west wall of the dog room, classroom 4. Avocado tree roots on both sides of the entrance. Disney bag, copyright 1982, found 4.5 feet below the classroom floor, from 3 to 6 feet in from the entrance and under the foundation of classroom 4. Tunnel proceeded south, then east, 45 feet through classrooms 4 and 3, north, then east 10 feet within classroom 4. Tunnels were 30 inches wide to 44 to 46 inches deep, with the top of the tunnel 30 inches under the classroom floor. The footing between classroom 3 and 4 was arched, where the tunnel passed beneath and was 12 inches shorter in depth at this location. 4 large upright containers were found in the tunnels under the arch, obviously hand-placed. A 9-foot wide chamber was found along the tunnel under classroom floor, classroom 4. Top of the chamber and top of sections of the tunnel had layers of plywood. Okay, trust me, you'll see what I'm getting at here. 7-foot tunnel extending into the triplex next door. Tunnels extended within the bathrooms of the office in classroom 1 to the front yard of the triplex next door. Front yard concealed from street by 3-car garage. Children described entering and exiting tunnel in the triplex yard exactly where the tunnel and exit were found. Other significant facts. A small white plastic plate with 3 pentagrams, hand-drawn on top of light green paint, was found by the archaeologist and the stratified dirt in the playground. Per historical archaeologists, pentagrams are hand-drawn by an adult and not part of the manufacturer's design. Many other artifacts found, whose analysis will be released upon completion of the test. No doorknobs were on Classroom 3's door, only a deadbolt lock. Each classroom had an on and off light switch labeled with fire alarm. System did not connect to fire station, but was used as an alert within the school. More than 2,000 artifacts were found under the school floor, including over 100 animal bones. Okay, so in the finder's report, there's a fucking detailed sketch and information about what was found in a tunnel network under McMartin Preschool. Well, what the fuck is McMartin Preschool? Oh, that was another big fucking sex scandal from the 80s and 90s.
He left matters to me.
Council, we address that later. Leander will instruct you. Conduct yourself with honor and we'll discuss what happens next.
Yes, sir, Commodore.
Yes, sir. Always a good boy.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Look at this. What have we here?
Commodore believes in the virtue of charitable acts. Some of these acts are demonstrated in public, some are not. To offer opportunity to the poor and beleaguered youth of the county, he enlists such as he can in service, with an eye towards schooling them in the useful domestic arts. Not all children prove suitable. And there is a limit to how much they may be helped. You will bring her to this address. You will make clear to the mother that no further compensation will be forthcoming. And no further inquiry will be brooked. Are you capable of that?
And I was sitting in her front parlour and she said some very special men were coming, that I had to do what they said, to do anything they wanted, and then I would get an ice cream. It was a black car and it had flags on either side of the windows, and they were in suits. They were bodyguards. They were dealing with fairly elite people because this type of abuse does not happen unless you can pay for this. And so people, my father's friends and people he leased me to, would pay good money for that. I was always either drugged or starved, because the thinner I looked, the younger I looked, and the pedophiles would pay more. It was leased out of a nightclub in K Road.
I keep my promises, James. And I'll make you one now. I will ruin you. All of you.
child.
You're the expert on children, aren't you? He never even asked her name. Just pointed to the one he wanted. The rest was understood.
Jimmy!
With 6 girls missing, there is strong public pressure to get results. Michel Demoulin, an investigator in the small town of Dinan, is one of the extra police officers drafted in to search for Laetitia.
Well, on the 9th of August 1996, the day Laetitia went missing, I was called upon to participate like other investigators in searches regarding this disappearance, since the investigation so far had yielded loads of data that had to be verified.
Dus na 2-3 dagen onderzoeken en zoeken.
After 2 or 3 days of searching, we still hadn't found Laetitia, but we did have a few statements that seemed interesting to us.
One statement came from a local resident who has noticed a suspicious vehicle in the village.
We were able to work out some parts of the registration number of the van, a white van. Also a good description of the van.
Which allowed us to make a connection with someone who had a potential profile on this kind of thing.
The van is registered to a 39-year-old father of 3, an unemployed electrician called Marc Dutroux.
See, I'm a father myself. I have 2 sons and a daughter. But let me tell you something, Mr. Whoever you are. This is a business. This is a very unique business with a very unique clientele.
I have 50,000, 100, 100,000.
On February 8th, Tallahassee police filed another report mentioning a curious incident involving a computer found on Florida State University campus in front of the library. Apparently, on Thursday, February 5th, a student named Robert Sorkin spotted the computer inside of a phone booth and decided to take it home. After he saw details relating to the Tallahassee police investigation, he turned it over to law enforcement, who determined the owner of the computer was, quote, obviously persons who are involved with a group called the Finders, end quote. A similar TSR-80 computer was also found in the group's van. Once the warehouses in D.C. were raided, D.C. Metro Police shared the details of their findings with the Tallahassee Police Department. In one report, D.C. Detective Bill Cagney describes finding a library of books which included books, quote, concerning mind control, end quote. By February 8th, Detective Jim Bradley at the D.C. Metro Police says he finds no evidence of satanic activity at either D.C. residence. On February 10th, the Tallahassee Police are told by Lieutenant Lee Hart of the Culpeper, Virginia Police Department that he has a contact within the Finders. This contact alleges that Marion Petty has notified all Finders to flee and hide. Curiously, Lieutenant Card tells the TPD that Petty would, quote, probably go to Andrews Air Force Base and get a military plane to China, end quote. The strange thing is there are several mentions of connections to China elsewhere in the Tallahassee Police Department report and in the U.S. Customs report. Why were the Finders men carrying a Chinese-English dictionary with them? Mary said she learned to count to 10 in Chinese from a Chinese man at the warehouse, and, as we'll see in a moment, the U.S. Customs report on the Finders mentioned that children were being ordered from a contact in Hong Kong. In these pages are the most damning accounts of alleged trafficking of children and potential connections to intelligence agencies. Martinez filed 3 memos, 2 of which describe his experience participating in the search of the warehouse in D.C. alongside the Metro Police. Once the Customs Service was notified that the children were allegedly en route to Mexico, a customs investigation was launched. The Metro Police reportedly contacted Customs because the agency maintains a network of child pornography investigators. Martinez notes that his office was contacted by Detective Jim Bradley with the Metro Police Department because he believed the Tallahassee case was strongly related to a case he was investigating in D.C. Bradley also told Martinez that he originally investigated the 2 addresses connected to the Finders in December of 1986, 2 months before the incident in Florida. An informant had given Bradley information regarding a cult known as the Finders, operating various businesses out of a warehouse. The information was specific in describing blood rituals and sexual orgies involving children, and a yet unsolved murder in which the Finders were alleged to be involved. Martinez's report states that during the execution of the warrant on the warehouse, he was, quote, able to observe and access the entire building, end quote. As authorities searched the building, they found tons of documents, a large library, a sauna, computers, maps with locations highlighted, a room with video recording equipment, and much more. Martinez says his search of the documents revealed the following. detailed instructions for obtaining children for unspecified purposes, instructions on the impregnation of female members of the finders, telex messages using MCI mail, an early version of email. One such telex message specifically ordering the purchase of 2 children in Hong Kong to be arranged through a contact in the Chinese embassy. Another telex message expressing interest in bank secrecy situations. Documents identifying interest in high-tech transfers to the UK and numerous properties under the control of the finders. Documents relating to terrorism, explosives, and invasion of law enforcement. A detailed summary of the events surrounding the previous night's arrest and of the 2 adults and 6 children in a Tallahassee park. And a set of instructions which appeared to be broadcast via a computer network, which advised the participants to move the children and keep them moving through different jurisdictions, and instructions on how to avoid police attention. The following day, Friday, February 6, 1987, Customs Agent Martinez meets Detective Bradley at the warehouse again. Quote, "I was again granted unlimited access to the premises," he writes. This time, Martinez says he observes, quote, "numerous documents which describe explicit sexual conduct between the members of the community known as the Finders." He also says he saw a large collection of photos of unknown people, including some nude photos of people believed to be members of the Finders. There were numerous photos of children, some nude, at least one of which was a photo of a child on display and appearing to accent the child's genitals. I was only able to examine a very small amount of the photos at this time. He also states that another officer showed him a photo album that contained a series of photos of adults and children dressed in white sheets participating in a blood ritual. Martinez says the photos showed the execution, disembowelment, skinning, and dismemberment of 2 goats at the hands of the children. Other documents include files relating to activities of the organization in different parts of the world, including London, Germany, the Bahamas, Japan, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Africa, Costa Rica, and Europe. Martinez reports seeing one file entitled Pentagon Break-In. He also claims a Metro Police Department officer told him the group maintained intelligence on private families. The officer told Martinez about a game the Finders would play in which the group would respond to local newspaper advertisements for babysitters, tutors, etc., and then a member of the Finders would gather as much information as possible about the habits, identity, occupation, etc. of the family. Martinez's file memo was filed April 13, 1987. 2 months after his original memos, Martinez reasserts his view that, quote, "numerous documents were discovered which appeared to be concerned with international trafficking in children, high-tech transfer to the UK, and international transfer of currency." Martinez says he talked with Detective Bradley on March 31st regarding a meeting to review the documents seized during the execution of the 2 search warrants. When Martinez arrives for the meeting on April 2nd, Detective Bradley is not available. Martinez writes that he, quote, "spoke to a third party who was willing to discuss the case with me on a strictly off-the-record basis," end quote. Agent Martinez is notified that all passport data gathered during the investigation was given to the U.S. State Department. The State Department then tells the Metro Police that all travel by the passport holders was within the law and no action was to be taken. Martinez notes that, quote, "this includes travel to Moscow, North Korea, and North Vietnam from the late 50s to mid-1970s, countries engaged in conflict with the United States at the time." This unnamed third party also tells Martinez that, quote, "the investigation into the activity of the Finders had become a CIA internal matter," end quote. Martinez's final statements reveal, "the MPD report has been classified secret and was not available for review. I was advised that the FBI had withdrawn the investigation several weeks prior and that the FBI Foreign Counterintelligence Division had directed MPD not to advise the FBI Washington Field Office of anything that had transpired. No further information will be available. No further action will be taken."
We're closed.
You always hit the bottle this early in the day, Reverend? You're still with the Tuttle Ministry then. What do you know about a Tuttle organization set up to finance rural schools?
It was called Wellspring. It was an evangelical initiative to provide religious education as an alternative to public schooling in rural communities. And part of the reason there were so many dropouts in the state, a lot of kids had to bus an hour or more.
You know about that school on Pelican Island?
I don't know it specific. But there was one in 1988. Accusations of children being interfered with.
I never found anything on that.
It was kept internal, I think. Maybe it was nothing, maybe people was paid. It's got nothing to do with me, mind you. I was going to school in Baton Rouge, gossip around the seminary, but we didn't give credence to rumors.
Why'd you leave?
Bureaucracy, politics.
Don't lie to me. Why'd you leave?
Part of our lay duties was custodial. One night, cleaning the senior minister's library, I knocked over a very old volume. The Letters of Telios de Lorca, 12th century Franciscan mystic, very obscure. When I picked up the book, this little folder falls out. Little folder of pictures. Pictures of children. Naked. Looked like they were sleeping.
What'd you do?
I took it over to the morals officer, Deacon Farrar. He was close with Tuttle, vice president of college.
You didn't do nothing?
He seemed angry that I brought it to him. He even intimated that maybe I was confessing to something. I had to prove to him that I wasn't. He promised to look into it. I left by the time the Wellspring shut down.
Why'd you quit the revival?
Our last 2 tents was vandalized. I lost heart. A little too much of this. All my life I want to be near to God. The only nearness? Silence.
On Friday, February 6th, Virginia State Police raided a 90-acre farm owned by Marion Petty in rural Madison County, Virginia. Neighbors of the farm say children were often brought to the farm in vans, usually crying. An FBI report states that, quote, evidence of a satanic cult ritual was discovered, end quote. The same report notes that all reports regarding finders are to be classified secret. Meanwhile, D.C. Metro Police and U.S. Customs Service agents raid other finders' properties, including a duplex apartment building and a warehouse in Washington, D.C. Police reports and articles from 1987 indicate that the D.C. police removed large plastic bags filled with color slides, photographs, and photographic contact sheets from the warehouse. Some of the photos were of naked children. U.S. Customs spokesman David Hoover tells the Post, quote, we're not saying it's pornographic, but it has all the earmarks, end quote. A U.S. Customs Service report describes some of the photos as showing blood rituals involving children slaughtering goats while adults in white robes watch. It also describes that they found instructions on how to purchase children. The importance of this report, written by U.S. Customs Service agent Raymond J. Martinez, will become clear as we move on. The Customs Service then claimed to be looking into allegations of child pornography. Police spokesman Scott Hunt states that the finders may have, quote, been accustomed to selling or smuggling the children of its members out of the country, end quote. Then Captain William White of the D.C. Police Department declines to speculate on what the possibilities might be, but reports written by D.C. Police state that law enforcement believe the possibilities include kidnapping or some type of international market for children.
The woman lying dead in the morgue was the woman at the party.
Yes.
Well, Victor, maybe I'm missing something here.
mind telling me what kind of fucking charade ends with somebody turning up dead?
Okay, Bill, let's cut the bullshit, all right? You've been way out of your depth for the last 24 hours. You want to know what kind of a charade? I'll tell you exactly what kind. That whole play-acted, take-me, phony sacrifice that you've been jerking yourself off with had absolutely nothing to do with her real death. Nothing happened to her after you left that party that hadn't happened to her before. When they took her home, she was just fine. And the rest of it is right there in the paper. She was a junkie. She OD'd. There was nothing suspicious. Her door was locked from the inside. The police are happy. End of story.
So in his excavation report, McAllister found a pit which he described as being filled with a great number of bones of human beings in a confused heap. And nearby was the skeleton of a young girl who had evidently been sawn asunder. She had been cut in half. And found along with this the skulls of 2 other girls who had been decapitated, and this could be determined because of the cut marks through the vertebrae. And then McAllister says that all around the feet of the columns, that is the standing stones, McAllister discovered the skeletons of young infants. They were deposited in large jars, and the skeletons showed marks of fire. Okay, and this is from his excavation report. You can see the skeletal remains of a burned baby inside of the jar. Buried ritually, not just buried, but buried ritually. Now, how are they buried ritually? They're buried in a place of sacrifice, in a sacred place of worship. Okay, this is about a 7-year-old girl that was cut in half. You can tell, by the way, when they're cut in half because you have a cut mark right through the vertebrae, right through the bones. Below this area, McAllister discovered a cave, and when his team cleared it, a flat stone was found at the center of the cave. Still lying upon it were the remains of the skeleton of a human infant. I know this is sobering, I know you're not having a good time, but you either want to know what's actually found in the ground or you don't. And it's important to know what's actually found in the ground. The Amorites live in the hill country of Canaan. Since Gezer was located in the hill country of Canaan, he interpreted it to be an Amorite city. McAllister used Exodus 23 that mentions the Amorites' sacred stones to identify the row of sacred stones he had unearthed at Gezer. The other large stone with a flat top he identified as an altar, and the purpose of its carved-out basin was for catching the blood of sacrifices. Based on these verses, McAllister knew the site he was excavating was a Canaanite high place where Amorites had worshipped their gods. The many idols found in the area provided evidence that this was a cultic site. Among the many idols that were found was a bronze serpent representing Moloch, the king of the Amorite gods. In Deuteronomy 12:31, the Lord says to the Israelites, "You must not worship the Lord your God in their way, because in worshiping their gods, they do all kinds of detestable things the Lord hates. They even burn their sons and daughters in the fire as sacrifices to their gods." Using this verse and others like it, McAllister labeled the picture of the remains of a burned human baby as a sacrificed infant buried in a jar. The severed human remains he also interpreted as evidence for child sacrifice. And in her book, Digging Up Jericho, she wrote, "There is an unpleasant suggestion of infant sacrifice. Besides one complete infant burial, a collection of infant skulls with the neck vertebrae attached, showing that the heads were cut off and not merely collected from burials." And so McAllister took the evidence of child sacrifice he had found and wrote it up in a chapter that he titled, "The Iniquity of the Amorites." In Leviticus 18:21, God commands Israel, "Do not give any of your children to be sacrificed to Moloch." Leviticus 20 verse 2 states, "Any Israelite or any foreigner residing in Israel who sacrifices any of his children to Moloch,
is to be put to death. Child sacrifice is sin because it is against God's law, and the penalty for committing this sin was death.
Because the number one argument against the Old Testament is what? God is mean. God is mean. No, God is just. If he's not just, he's not God. And where is justice going to be for these babies that are burned and for these children that are sacrificed?
So many people go to Gezer, they picnic there, they visit there, they hike, they bike, and they're going along and they look and they see these 12 standing stones in a row, and they see this basin cut into this rock, and they're like, what on earth is this place? And so there's a information sign up on the top of the hill overlooking the site, and so many of them go over to get an explanation of the site from this sign. The sign says, scholars believe the temple served as a venue where alliances between tribes or city-states were forged or renewed. The 10 monoliths may have symbolized the city of Gezer and 9 allied cities in its vicinity. The basin may have served as a container for a blood libation poured during an alliance ceremony. So obviously this interpretation is very different from the original interpretation that was given by the archaeologists that excavated the site. Where is all the evidence? Where is the mention of the burned babies in jars? Where is the mention of the severed vertebrae of these children that had been cut in half and beheaded? What essentially has happened is they've removed the crime from the crime scene, therefore making it not a crime scene at all. It's very different if God calls for the complete destruction of a people who are just making an alliance with each other than if he's calling for their destruction because they're murdering innocent children. It is the right interpretation. That is the practice that was going on at the high place of Gezer, and the Bible was the right tool to use to bring out that understanding.
We're Americans, right? Let me ask you a serious question. Is America going to stand in the final judgment and judge the Canaanites for their sin? Is America going to be innocent of the shedding of the blood of the innocent? Do you see how real the problem is? That the nature of man truly is evil all the time. That the problem really is sin. And because the problem is so real, we so desperately need a real solution.
Because we're coming after everyone who does this with a vengeance, and will chase you to the ends of the earth, all the way to Australia. My detectives have to see the video clips of the children screaming in pain and fear and agony. First, let me introduce you to David Sparks. He's 66 years of age. He's retired. He was in customer service, and he's married. He's charged with 350 counts of child porn that we found on a CD. We found that these children that were being sexually battered were between 3 months old and 12 years old on the porn that he had. His wife of 10 years is a retired Child Protective Services worker out of Missouri. She had no knowledge of his evil deeds and was absolutely mortified. Paul Val, he's 40, from Davenport. He's married. He works at Disney World at Cosmic Ray's restaurant. He moved here specifically to work at Disney World. Well, why do people like Paul Val work at Disney? Because that's where the children are. He had 540 counts of child pornography from newborns to 8 years of age. He also had videos. There was photographs where they had tied up babies in preparation for sexual battery. There was one where a child was just weeks old, where they had the child's hands tied behind her back. A very young child with her hands tied behind her back. There's videos of a 3 to 6 month old been sexually battered by an adult male. His wife asked, she's only been married to him for a year, "Did I marry a monster?" "Yes, you did. You married a monster." By the way, when we kicked the door in, he came to the door nude. Think about this for a minute. Photographs of children bound up, some with their hands tied behind their backs. Infants. William Cuvas, 49, from Auburndale. He works for Coca-Cola in Auburndale. He had 67 counts of child porn between 4 and 12 years of age. He had 2 children at home, and his wife was horrified. Here's a warning to those in the community. We're coming after you. If you're a child predator, if you're involved in child pornography, you are at the top of our list of people to investigate and arrest. You're not going to victimize the children. You're just not going to victimize our children.
Notice he never reported the Baton Rouge break-in, just the Shreveport house. Found those in the safe there. Paper stocks over 15 years old. God damn it. These found in the bag. You don't know what you're looking at. And there's a videotape. Take a look.
Emmy.
You and me.